What is up, guys? Welcome back to another one of my videos. In today's video, I'm going to be editing a portrait straight from the very beginning to the very end. I'm going to be showing you guys all my tips and tricks and everything in between the start to the finish process in order to maybe provide some sort of help to you guys when editing. But before we get started, make sure you guys are following me over on Instagram at @ThatMatthiasKid so you can make sure you stay up to date with all of the new creative work that I'm doing. So we are here in Lightroom, and my first step when I'm editing is to crop the image to fit the specific layout where I'm going to post it. So for example, if this is going to go on Instagram, usually the framing for that would be 4:5 or 8:10. So I like to crop that according to wherever I'm going to post it or to the format that I want to post it in. Like I mentioned before, this is going on Instagram. So we're going to go ahead and crop that into the 8:10, 4:5 format so that we don't need to do any other extra cuts later on. Another general rule that I like to keep for myself is to always keep the eyes at a third level. So as you can see here, it's right above the halfway line of the image. That just is more pleasing to the eyes for some reason. It's just been a thing that I've been doing for quite a while. So, and that usually pretty much balances out the image for you. Okay, so now that we have the image cropped, the second thing I like to do is start out with a preset. I'm gonna go ahead and throw one that I already saw on here before the video worked pretty well with this image. Every preset will be different for every specific image you're trying to work with, so it's really just about going in and seeing what presets that you have that kind of match and work with the image that you're using. For me, I found that in my TMK Runs the World preset pack, the Concert World preset works pretty well. It's a little bit washed out, a little bit too much highlights, but we're going to fix that here in a second, like I said. So now that we have the preset selected, as I mentioned previously, the washed out highlights are going to have to be fixed. So first and foremost, I think it is a little too bright with the standard preset, so we're going to turn the exposure down just a tiny bit. That is a little too much for my liking, so we're going to go ahead and bring it back up just a little bit. Probably around this area. Like I said, the face has a lot of highlights here and some shadows in this area, so I'm going to turn the highlights down also just a little bit to even out the face. That's probably good. The whites as well, just a tiny bit, because like I said, the whites and highlights usually are kind of the same thing. So as you can see, we're turning that down just a bit. That's pretty good there. The shadows are actually pretty well set with this preset, so I don't really have to mess with too much with this image. But let's try to turn the shadows down just a little bit to make it a little bit darker on the darker sides here. And right there looks pretty much good to me. And usually once I get done with this basic area here in the Lightroom tab, I like to go into the face, and before I do anything else, I like to start the healing process of any blemishes that they might have on the face, any imperfections, anything that might just be distracting in the image. So I'll go ahead and do that now, and I'll see you guys after I'm done with this process. Alright, so now as you can see, I've selected just a few areas of the face that were just a little bit blemishy. Obviously it's nothing crazy. It's something that could have probably been avoided if you didn't want to do this step. However, I always make sure to go through and do this step just because it helps me keep my image more balanced out and more nicer looking. Okay, so the next step for me is always to go in and look at their eyes. Most of the time I like to bring the brightness and enhance the eyes a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask, press K on the keyboard for the shortcut. And then I like to go ahead and select the iris around the eyes here carefully so that it selects only the colored part. It's a little bit difficult to keep straight most of the time, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be roughly in the same area. Once that is selected, you can see the red is obviously indicating the area that you're working with. I go down to the exposure, and this I just like to turn up just a little bit. As you can see here, it's going to start to brighten up his eyes just enough to kind of give it the little vibrance in the eyes. That might be a little too much actually. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit, probably around this area here. And then if you turn the blacks up, it'll also get rid of the dark spots in the eyeball, which then in turn will give you a more brighter eye. So we're going to turn the blacks up just a little bit as well. And there's a lot of black areas in the eye because that's just naturally a darker color of the eyes. And if you look at the eye closely, you can see the darker areas kind of begin to get super bright here, as you can see there. Obviously that's a little bit more than what we need, so we're going to turn it down probably in this area here just to give it that brightness. And then obviously like I said, I like to enhance the eyeballs. So if their eyes are blue, I like to turn the temperature down just a little bit to kind of further emphasize the blue color in their eye, just like that. As you can see, if their eyes are brown, again, you can do the same thing and turn the temperature over to brown, to the yellow areas, and kind of enhance that brown color if that's the color of their eyes. So depending on the color of their eyes, you can kind of do it accordingly to whatever color you'd like to more emphasize. Once that is done, I'm going to go ahead and press enter. We're going to go back to our image where it is. And I always like to look at it from the perspective of the full image as well, because sometimes what may seem like is good in a zoomed in area is not as cool looking when it's full frame. So for example, these eyes may look cool, but they look a little bit too fake for me. So I'm going to go back in and we're going to turn the eyes, just turn the brightness down just a little bit, because like I said, it's not really giving the vibe that I would like for it to do. It's a little too fake. So we're going to turn it down just a bit, probably around there. And now when I look at it from the full frame, it looks a little bit more realistic, but also enough to have that enhanced look. So the face and the eyes are pretty much done. I don't really have much need to touch any more of that for now. So I'm going to go down. This is how I showed you guys in my previous video that I made, how to kind of add the hazy look. If you turn the texture down and the clarity down to roughly around 44, 45, it's a very good soft spot where you can still kind of see just enough details, but also kind of give it that blurry, hazy, glowy effect as well. So I like to keep both texture and clarity most of the time down at about -45, -40. The vibrance and saturation really depends on each image. I don't really mess with this. I kind of just leave it as is unless I really need to. Tone curve, usually I like to come down here and just drag this up just a little bit to kind of bring the shadows up. There we go. That's pretty much all I do in all of my images. So this is completely optional, up to you. I always like to just bring it up just a little bit. Okay, and then we go down to the color mixer. This is really cool, and this is probably one of the most fun parts of editing to me. I really love being in the color mixer and adding every individual color and kind of changing those on their own. We're going to go ahead and select, there's a way that you can do the point color, and this will pretty much give you access to select a specific color with the eyedrop. However, I just like to do the mixer. And so then it gives you hue, saturation, and luminance to each color in the image. And so you can kind of change the color of his skin tone by messing with the orange here. As you'll see, it starts to become a lot more orange, a lot less orange. And so that kind of gives you the opportunity to then go in for the specific skin tone of your model and give it, you know, a nicer look overall. I'm gonna leave it probably around there. So now we'll go over to the saturation and make it a little bit less bright, as you can see there. Maybe not that much. Probably around this area where we can still get a look of the orange, just not anything crazy orange. There we go. We'll keep that. The greens are, as far as in the back, I think those need to be a little bit washed out. Probably around this area is good. Then we'll go ahead and go down to the color grading. This is completely up to you and how each image is going to work with you. However, I think for this image, I'm going to go ahead and just skip that part. Then I like to do the sharpening. My sharpening is literally always, regardless of the image, unless it's like a very specific case, it's always staying at 79. My radius is always at 1.0 and my detail is always at 49. I have not moved it. If I do move it, like I said, it's a very specific case, but this I have found that just adds a perfect sharpen around the edges of the image of the subject. And so I haven't really had a need to change this. It's been working fine. So I would suggest those numbers. However, you can mess around to how sharp you want your image to look and mess around with that. As far as the lens correction, we'll put the vignetting back at 100 just to keep it in balance. And our distortion, I'm going to go ahead and put that up to 200 so it evens out the image edges there, as you can see, and we'll have a more straight on image. I think it just looks cleaner and nicer. Transform, I don't really do anything. As far as the transform area, I don't really mess with it too much, but I do want to show you guys you can do different sections and give you a different look. So what this is going to do is you'll be able to select two lines, be able to make lines in your image of where you want your image to be guided with, and that'll transform your image to keep that balance there, which is another cool feature. However, I don't think I'm going to do that, so we're going to get rid of that. Okay, now we have the lens blur option. This is cool. However, I still haven't really found a appropriate time to use this because most of the lens blur that I want to do is already done in my camera. However, if you maybe have a lens that doesn't have as much bokeh in the back, You could try this lens blur effect to kind of give you that blurry background. Like I said, I don't really have a use for it, and I haven't found a use for it yet, but it is cool that they integrated that. They mess with the vignetting at all. The grain, I usually like to keep it about 25 and the size just about a little bit under, so I'm going to leave it at 15. Just gives it a more balanced look. And then everything in the calibration, just depending on your image. And so here we are. This is the final image. We'll go ahead and look at the before and after here. Super cool image, man. That's about all that I do when I'm editing. It all comes down to every specific image in itself. So some images may require a lot more time. Some images may require a lot more masks. Some images may require little to no time. And so it just really depends on the image, but those are some things that I do, some ways that I edit that may be able to help you out, and maybe some tips and tricks that you can do when you edit. So there you have it. That's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys leave a thumbs up, subscribe down below. It really does help a lot. And let me know in the comments if there's any other videos that you guys would like to see. I'd be happy to put them out for you guys. Until then, I'll catch you next time.